Well, hello everyone. It's just after 8 o'clock, so I'm going live with a webinar on how to visualize easily if you can't do it. So a couple of things before I start. The first one is that this is a Google Hangout, and as we know, Google Hangouts can be technically a little bit glitchy. So bear with me if it cuts out or if you do have some problems. There will be a replay available, and I'll be sending out the link for that after the hangover is over. I do have the Facebook page open, Dr. Jane P. Lewis, and if you've got any questions or you're having any issues with connecting, then just pop me a message in there. I've also got on my little iPad, I've got a session running so that I can see what it looks like to you, and hopefully that's going to help me as well to see what's really going on. Because if you've ever run a Hangout, you'll know that sometimes as the presenter you don't actually know everything that's going on, which is a little odd. Okay, so let's begin at the very beginning. What we're going to be covering tonight is, firstly, why it's important to visualize. Because I think for a lot of people, they don't really have the motivation, and because they don't have the motivation, they never bother to pick up on what they need to do in order to actually do the visualizing. The second thing that we're going to look at is why people actually find it difficult to visualize. A lot of people find it really easy, and for them it's like, duh. But for those of us who do or have found it difficult, and I'm one, then it's useful to understand that that's me talking to myself. Sorry about that. I did say there would be some technological glitches. So it's if you have had difficulties visualizing, it can be really, really difficult. So we'll be talking about why people do have difficulties with that. Second thing we'll be talking about is, what actually do we mean by visualization? What is this thing that we call visualization? And the third thing that we'll be talking about is how actually, if you find visualization difficult, how can you make it easy for yourself? How can you start visualizing? So I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of background. What is it about me and visualization? Why do I think this subject is important? Well, the main reason is that because in the past, I have found visualization incredibly difficult. I did clinical depression for a number of years, and in my depression, I found it more and more difficult to envisage a future. I tried all sorts of things to get myself out of the depression, and I'd been on various personal development courses because I didn't want to take pills. I'd been on various personal development courses, and they'd have us doing all sorts of things, and I'd struggle with it, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't work. And then I got into NLP. And when I got into NLP, the NLPers were all saying, make a picture. And I'd try and make a picture, and my mind would go completely and utterly blank. And they'd tell me not to be so silly, lovingly. They tell me not to be so silly. Of course you can make a picture. Everybody makes pictures. When we dream, we make pictures. Everybody makes pictures. But I found it really, really difficult to make pictures in my head. And because I was finding it really difficult to make pictures in my head, I found it difficult to envisage a future for myself. I could think of the future, but I was feeling depressed anyway, so the future didn't really hold an awful lot of possibility. But the big problem was that I couldn't visualize. I couldn't make pictures. Or I could, but it was difficult. And the more difficult it got, the more frustrated I got. And the more frustrated I got, the more stressed I got. And one of the things I realized quite early on is that when you're feeling stressed, doing something that you already find difficult becomes more difficult. The stress starts to get in the way. The stress starts to become the problem. And the more stressed I was when I was trying to visualize, the more difficult I found it. As a coach, I learned along the way that visualization is a very powerful tool for coaching clients. But in my heart of hearts, I couldn't really ask coaching clients to visualize if they were struggling with it when I knew that I myself had difficulties. As time went on and I got out of my depression and I did a lot more work with NLP, I regained my ability to visualize. And as I regained my ability to visualize, I realized that indeed I was regaining it. It wasn't something that I never had. I did have it at one stage in my past, but somehow along the way I had lost it. So one of the things that I had to do was to relearn it. And I thought about the times when I had been able to visualize. As a kid, I was the dreamiest kid on the planet. I was always imagining things and seeing things and dreaming of the future. So I had been able to do it. Perhaps not at will, but I'd definitely been able to do it. So it wasn't about doing something that I never had been able to do. It was about regaining that ability, regaining that possibility, so that I could start to create for myself the kind of future I really want. And just as an aside, as I regained this ability to recreate my future, almost as a joke, I decided to do a little exercise. And I put into my future something that really, it didn't matter whether I got it or not. And I put it in my future for 3 months ahead. And I imagined it was 3 months ahead. And I was sitting in a particular type of sports car, a Mazda MX-3, red one, with the top down, zooming along the motorway, driving along. Beautiful day, a little bit of wind, and I was just feeling the wind going over the car. It was just wonderful. And one of the things I said was, I have not paid for this car in any way, shape, or form. It's somehow I'm driving it, and it's come to me. It's not cost me anything. So I popped it in as a joke. It was April time or May time, and forgot about it. Life went on, and a couple of months later, I was up in Manchester, and I was on a business trip with my then boss, and there was a train strike, and we'd been supposed to hire a car at Manchester Airport to drive up to where we were going, which was somewhere out in the country. Got to the airport to pick up the car, no car, because a lot of people had held on to their cars because of this train strike. So the lady behind the desk thought a bit and said, "I'm really sorry, I can't help you. I haven't got the car you want." And she said, "But I have got a car, but if it's a business trip, I'm not sure it would be suitable." By this point, any car would do. So she gave us the keys. We walk out to the car, and it's an MX-3. White, but it's an MX-3. We get into it. I'm the passenger. My boss he'd been a semi-professional racing car driver, so of course he was going to drive. And suddenly he looked at me and he said, "Jane, would you like to drive?" Well, yes. And there I was, driving along the motorway in the general direction of Liverpool in this open-top car, but it was white, open-top car. And as I was driving along with the wind rushing through my hair, I suddenly remembered this silly little thing that I had visualized for myself and put into my future. There I was. It was white, it wasn't red, but it hadn't cost me a bean. It was just in the time frame I'd wanted, and there was I, driving along the road in this car, which was a real proof to me that visualization does work and that you can relearn to visualize if you've been having problems with it. So let's talk a little bit about why visualization is important. As I've just explained, visualization is a way of manifesting, and it's a tool used by a lot of people to manifest the future that they want. I have a friend who was doing a visualization, and she was asked to imagine a day, a year ahead, a perfect day. And one of the elements that she saw in that future, she was sitting on the beach eating mangoes, freshly picked mangoes that she'd picked herself. Within a year, she'd moved to the Far East and found herself sitting on a beach eating freshly picked mangoes. So people use it for manifestation, for creating the future that they want, for making things really happen how they want them to happen. Second reason that visualization is important is that it's very important if you want to improve your performance. Now, a lot of athletes, particularly Olympic athletes, know this, and I'm just going to look away while I check on Facebook whether there are any questions about this webinar. No, it looks like we're doing all right at the minute. Okay, so a lot of Olympic athletes, they understand this, and they use what they call performance rehearsal in order to perform at the highest level. If you read the autobiography of just about any athlete, the comments in the newspaper of an athlete after they've won a race, you will hear them time and time again talk about the importance of mental preparation. Djokovic won Wimbledon a couple of days ago, and in one of the interviews he was talking about the mental preparation. People talked about his mental preparation because he struggled with the match, but he won it. It was about his mental preparation that had contributed to that. There's an Australian swimmer, Ian Thorpe, a very good swimmer, who was commenting on the Olympic Games swimming a couple of years back in London. And he described how, when he was preparing for a race, he would visualize that entire race from the moment he walked onto the starting blocks by the pool to the moment he finished the race in the winning position. And that whole visualization, he would visualize the moment his body left the blocks and went into the air. And as his body went into the air, landing in the water, he talked about what he smelt, how he smelt that particular swimming pool smell, what he would hear in the crowd and how it would suddenly all go silent inside. He talked about the feeling of the water on his flesh as he dived into it, and then as he was swimming through, how the water felt on his skin, the pace, his breathing, every single possible detail of that swim. He visualized it over and over and over again, performance rehearsal, so that as his body left the blocks in a proper race, he knew that he was actually on track and he was doing what he had visualized himself doing. So athletes at the highest level use visualization in order to ensure that they are winning and in order to ensure that their performance is at the absolute highest possible level. Visualization is also incredibly important for retraining your body or improving your own physical performance. Here's a little exercise. So just close your eyes for a moment and turn your head in a way that's easy. Just turn your head and as far as you can, open your eyes and just notice how far you've turned your head. Notice what you can see. Bring your head back to the center. Now, close your eyes and visualize yourself doing exactly the same thing all over again. Visualize it. And in your visualization, go even further. Go as far as you possibly can. Maybe imagine your head being like an owl and being able to look right to the very back of you. So just do that in your mind's eye. Close your eyes and visualize your head going even further, way further, perhaps like a little owl. Tweet-doo. Open your eyes. And now do it again. Turn your head and see how much further you go. And I've gone about 7 or 8 inches further than I did the first time. There are plenty of stories of people who have successfully outwitted the doctors by using this technique. People who have broken their backs and have been told they would never walk again. I have a friend who had multiple sclerosis, and she was doubly incontinent, in a wheelchair, and had difficulty feeding herself. She decided that she didn't want to live her life like this, and decided, one of the things she decided to do was to retrain her body. Multiple sclerosis destroys the contacts between the nerves. So she retrained her body. She imagined, tiny bit by tiny bit, every muscle involved in making different movements. She would have people butter toast, and she would watch them buttering the toast to see how they did it. She'd have people take her hand and guide her in the buttering so that she could feel how that worked with the muscles. She rehearsed and she rehearsed, she visualized and she visualized, she imagined herself doing it. And gradually she regained control of her ability to stand, her ability to walk, her ability to butter her own toast, and brought herself back into a way of life which she could accept, which she could live with, and actually managed to convince the doctors that she'd never had multiple sclerosis in the first place. If you look on the Stroke Association site in the UK, there's a lovely story of a guy called Phil Walker, who started off doing a lot of bodybuilding. He had a stroke in his early 30s, he must have been 32, 33 when he had this stroke, and it completely took out one side of his body. He set himself a target. He wanted to be bodybuilding and winning competitions again within a year. Another photo on the site shows him within 10 months of his stroke in this great bodybuilding position, winning a fantastic body, winning a competition. Now, the way he did it, the main tool that he used to do that was visualization. So visualization to retrain your body, to retrain your mind, is incredibly powerful. So those are just a couple of the reasons why visualization is important. Talk to any really successful person and they will tell you that visualization and mindset are absolutely key to their success and their happiness. So if you want to be happy and successful, then visualizing is going to be extremely useful. So moving on then to why people can't visualize. And there are a lot of reasons why people can't visualize. The first one is that a lot of us at some point decide that we can't, decide it's too difficult for whatever reason. And when we decide something's difficult, amazingly enough, it becomes difficult. The truth is, we all visualize. Even blind people visualize. I've talked to people who are blind from birth about this, and they tell me, yes, they visualize. They see pictures in their head. They can imagine things in their head. They visualize. In our dreams, we're making pictures. We are effectively visualizing. And if you get really good at lucid dreaming, you can learn how to visualize in your dream, create a future, create what you want in your dream, take control of your dream. Creativity. A lot of creative people use visualization in order to achieve what they want. The rapper Jay-Z, he's apparently known for this. He creates what he wants with his visualizations. So visualization is a powerful tool for creativity. Another reason that people can't visualize, some people can't visualize, in my case particularly, is depression. Depression's a funny thing, and it affects different people in different ways. There's many different types of depression. It has different impacts on people. When I was depressed, visualization became impossible, and it became impossible for a number of reasons. One reason was that when you're depressed, it's really difficult to imagine a future because the present is so miserable. You don't want to imagine a future because the chances are the future is going to be just as miserable as the present. And when you haven't got the energy to get out from under the duvet, and when really you just weep your way through the day, or you're like this through the day, visualization is not something that you want to be doing. The neuroscientists are finding out that depressed people have problems with visualizing the future, not just because there is this, I don't want to visualize the future, it's too frightening, it's too scary, not just because of this, but also in terms of the chemical changes that take place in the brain in depression actually affect depressed people's ability to get into the specifics of visualization. If you want to visualize, it's good to do it specifically, particularly if you're visualizing for manifestation, creativity, or a successful performance, winning a race. But depressed people find it really difficult to do that. They can't get there, they can't get the specifics. Now, it may well be that one of the things that depressed people do is they generalize. So the more depressed you become, and I certainly experienced this when I was depressed, the more depressed I became, the more I would take any experience that I had that was a negative experience, a bad experience, that proved that my life was absolute crap. I would then take that one experience and generalize and assume that it was true for the whole of my life. So I'd get up in the morning and I'd be feeling rubbish, and I don't know, I'd stub my toe, and I'd convince myself that that was what the rest of my day was going to be like, and I really shouldn't have got out of bed in the first place, because I'd be much, much better off if I'd stayed in bed, because that's what all my days were like. It was always like that. Every day was like that. My life was like that. I was better off staying in bed. So from that one little event, might be, say, stubbing of a toe, suddenly all of my life was like that. It was a metaphor for the whole of my life. So when we're depressed, we have this tendency to generalize. We have this tendency to take a bad experience and make our whole life a bad experience. The other thing that we do, I certainly did this very well, is that we ignore the positive experiences. So something good might happen, but it gets deleted. When I think back on the period when I was depressed, there were many good experiences. There were many times when I was with friends in the moment and having a brilliant time in the moment. And then I'd think, oh, but I'm depressed. And I'd go back to being depressed. One of the things I did when I was depressed was that I numbed everything out. And a lot of depressed people do this, because when you're feeling so bad, you want to just numb it, because you don't want to feel anything, because feeling nothing is better than feeling so crap. But what then happens is not feeling anything becomes so crap that you want to feel something, and feeling crap is better than feeling nothing, than feeling numb. Now, that doesn't make logical sense to man and the beast, but in the mind of somebody like me when I was doing this, it's absolutely logical and sensible. So we kind of, certainly my experience was, I lurched from totally numb, devoid of feeling, to just feeling crap, because it was better than feeling numb. Now, when you're in that state, it's very, very difficult to create a future that's got any specifics in it, because you're diluting all the positive experiences, so you've no positive experiences to put into your future. You're generalizing all your negative experiences, so your whole future is going to be a negative experience anyway. Of course, you're not going to be able to visualize. You're not going to want to visualize. Another reason people find it difficult to visualize is they haven't got the motivation. They don't believe it. They don't believe it works, or they don't believe it's worth it. There are plenty of people who, when I talk to them about visualization, they say, nah, don't be silly. It doesn't work. Oh, don't. And it doesn't matter what I say about Olympic athletes. It doesn't matter what I say about successful business people. It doesn't matter what I tell them about retraining the body. No, not going to work. Well, if you believe something's not going to work, the chances are it isn't. And if you believe it's not going to work, you probably aren't going to put the effort in to make it work. So there we are. I'm just checking again to see if anybody's... No, all seems to be well on there. So we don't put in the effort because we don't believe that it's actually worthwhile. Another reason that people have difficulty is because they're frightened of failure. If you believe that you can't do something, you want to do it, but you believe that you can't do it, then very often what happens is that you become frightened that you'll fail. This has kind of happened to me with doing Google Hangouts. I have no problem talking to an audience. I have no problem talking on video, even though you are kind of talking to yourself and there's no feedback. What I do struggle with is the actual business of getting the Hangout together. As you can see, I'm still looking at my iPad because I'm not totally convinced that the technology is working. And it may be the technology isn't working, but hey, we'll find out, won't we? So I don't know what's going on at the moment. And for a couple of weeks, I've been doing a little bit of a fear thing. I've been going, oof. I've been finding all these reasons not to run a Google Hangout because I've been a bit worried that it wouldn't work. So when we think we can't do something, one of the things we do is we create reasons why it won't work. Many, many reasons why it won't work. And we set up fear. If you're frightened of doing something, it's much more difficult to do it. I mentioned stress at the beginning. If you're stressed, it can be very difficult to visualize. And the more stressed you become, the more difficult it is to visualize, the more difficult it is to visualize, the more stressed you become. And so it becomes a pattern. People who've suffered trauma in the past may also find it difficult to visualize. And to some extent, fear is at the back of this as well. Because people who have been very severely traumatized, I'm lucky, I'm not one of those, may fear recreating traumatic experience in their visualization. Quite often people who've been traumatized they cut their memories, they cut their ability to memorize. And as they do that, so they also cut their ability to see into the future because they don't want to re-trigger old experiences. So there are many reasons why we may find it difficult to visualize. So let's talk now about what do I mean by visualization. So the first thing I mean by visualization is that it's the ability to make pictures in our head. Now it's more than that, but the number one thing is it's the ability to make pictures in our head. Now we can all do that. Just think of a time when perhaps you lost a set of keys. You lose a set of keys. The first thing you probably do is you go around the house and you look in all the different places where the keys might be just to see if they really are there. After you've done that a few times and you haven't found your keys, you then stop and you go, okay, where did I last have them? And you start to replay it in your mind. And as you replay it in your mind, you visualize, where did you go? What did you do? I went there, and you're looking in all these different places. So we make pictures in our head easily. We make pictures in our head when we use language. If I say to you the word cup, you'll probably find that an image of a cup pops into your head. Now, your image of a cup may be very different from my image of a cup, but we both know, broadly speaking, what we're talking about. And we certainly know that a cup is different from a chair. Our images of a chair may be different, but chairs and cups, they're not the same. We make a picture. A picture of a cup, a picture of a chair, a representation in our heads of these different words. Now, that happens with things, tangible things. But what happens when you're thinking about emotions like love? When you say love, what goes on in your mind? Do you see somebody you love? Do you hear something, the love song? Do you feel the love? Because visualization doesn't just have to be visual. Visualization can also involve the sounds, the feelings, the emotions, the smell. We talked about Ian Thorpe, the swimmer. He remembered the smell. He visualized the smell. We can sense the taste. We can put all those things into our visualization. It doesn't just have to be pictures. So a visualization is making a picture. Now, when you use visualization for manifestation, you've got to imagine the picture. You've got to create the picture. You've got to create the picture in time. You create the picture in time for the time when you want it. So when I visualized this car, I put a time scale on it, which was 3 months ahead. I visualized the car. I saw the car. Now I'd seen that kind of car around. I knew what I was looking for. So I could take the memory and just pop it in there. I don't think I'd ever seen a red one. So I had to imagine that. I had to create that. But there it was. There was my car. I visualized it. I felt the wind in my hair. I put the feeling into it. And so I created that thing in my future, which came to pass. So when you want to create those things in your future that you want to bring to pass, then the ability to create the full picture in all its detail is very, very important. So visualization, it's making pictures in your head with sounds or without sounds, with feelings or without feelings, but making them very real. And then when you want to imagine a future, imagining that future in pictures. So if you're having difficulty visualizing, you may be thinking, well, yep, that's all very well, Jane, but what do we do? How can we actually make this happen? So here's some things that you can do to make visualization easy. The first thing is that if you're having difficulty visualizing, you need to think about the doubts, the fears, the anxieties, the reasons that you have for not doing it. Because if you don't clear those out first, then actually visualizing will probably continue to be an issue. How do you identify those doubts and fears, you say? Well, one of the ways of doing it is to keep a journal. Journal, write down the word visualization. Write down, what does visualization mean? Visualization means this to me. Visualization is, when I visualize, I feel this. What do you feel when you visualize? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel doubtful? Do you feel fearful? What are your fears and doubts? What are the things that are stopping you visualizing? What are the amazing reasons you have why visualization isn't going to work for you, or why it shouldn't work for you? So the first thing you need to do is to work with the fears and the doubts and the anxieties about visualization. And then there are many, many baby steps that you can take to develop the skill. They say a habit takes 21 days to develop. So things that you can practice day in, day out for 21 days, once or twice a day, will build up the habit. One habit that you can start to build up is the ability to imagine. So for example, I'm sitting in a room here, and the room is white. The walls, well, they're kind of browny. The walls are kind of browny white. So one exercise I can do is I can sit in here looking at the walls, looking at the browny white walls, and then I can start to imagine what the walls would look like if they were blue. So as I look at the walls, I'm imagining them go blue. And I can do it with my eyes open, or I can do it with my eyes shut. Simple exercise. The walls are white. Okay, what would happen if they were blue? We often do this. We'll walk into a room, and maybe we want to change the furniture around. The first thing we do is imagine what it would look like with the furniture in different places, and then we may try a bit and then move the furniture. If we want to buy new curtains, we may imagine what it would look like with new curtains, or we hold up swatches of material and we picture what that would look like on a grand scale. So simple things, or take an item. I've got a cup here. Talking of cups, look at your cup. What would happen if this cup had Mickey Mouse on it? and I can start to imagine Mickey Mouse. So take simple items, simple objects, and simple situations, everyday items, everyday objects, and everyday situations, and just, with the power of your imagination, practice making small changes. The second thing that you can do is to start to really rediscover positive memories. So, for example, if I'm thinking about my future and I have a sense in my future that I want to be on a beautiful beach, and I have in my past been on beautiful beaches, so one of the things I can do is take myself back to that moment in time where I'm on that beautiful beach. See the beautiful beach, go back to that beautiful beach, imagine it, put myself back in that position, feel myself on the beautiful beach, smell it, hear it, taste it, be there in my memory. And then, taking my memory, put my memory out into the future. Because the brain doesn't really make huge distinction between what's real and imagined anyway. It's a weird thing, but when we imagine things, the brain can interpret as reality. That's why the Olympic athlete's performance rehearsal trick, that's why it works so well. The brain doesn't distinguish between reality and the imagined, and so the reality and the imagined become one and the same. It's no longer imagined, it's reality. They just are the same. So taking positive memories and reimagining them as if they were in the future, the brain doesn't make that distinction. Another thing that we can start to do is to think about making any visualizations really using all the senses. For some people, visual isn't really their strongest sense. Some people prefer to represent their world in sounds, some people prefer to do it in feelings. Some people, smell and taste are really important. What's your most important sense? How do you like to experience the world? Is it very much in pictures and it's what you see? Is what you hear important to you? Is it either going on in your head or what's going on around? But the sounds, are they the things that are important? Is it doing things? Is it moving your body? Is it feeling and emotion? How do you best like to represent your world? Now, no one is completely visual or completely auditory or completely physical and feeling, what they call kinesthetic. We all have elements of all of that. But we have preferences, and some people have stronger preferences to others. So if your preference is for kinesthetic, for feeling and emotion, how can you put feeling and emotion into your visualization to make it more powerful, to make it more meaningful for you? One technique for visualization is the vision board, sometimes known as the treasure map. And basically you take a piece of cardboard, and it's like being a kid, you make a collage, you cut out bits from the magazines and you put them on, and you imagine what you want, and you want some money and you put money on there, and you want a house and you put a house on there, and you create a vision board. Personally, I don't find vision boards very useful because I get bored. It takes too long. However, the advantage of a vision board is that it's very kinesthetic. You're cutting, you're gluing, you're putting it all together. It's visual as well because the end result is visual, but it also involves your body in the creation process. So if you have difficulty doing a visualization like that, try doing visualizations where you actually find the pictures, create the pictures, stick them onto a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper, and make your treasure map. Another thing that you can do is just teeny little things. So for example, say you want to create for yourself some money, let's say £5,000 for whatever reason, but you want £5,000. In your mind's eye, just imagine writing on a piece of paper and see it appearing on the piece of paper, a bit like Daniel in the Bible writing and seeing the writing on the wall. Imagine writing £5,000. I should probably do it that way. But anyway, imagine writing £5,000. What does that look like? What does it feel like? Imagine creating these tiny little pictures, these small pictures, and keep practicing doing that. Notice the times when you are making pictures in your head. Notice the times when your friends are making pictures in your head. If you're having a conversation with a friend, let's say you have a friend and who's looking for a house, and they've been out looking for the house, and they come to you and they're all excited. They say, we've seen the perfect house, absolutely perfect house. And you say, oh, what's it like? And they start to describe it for you. Now, neither you nor they are anywhere near the perfect house. They've been to visit it and they've come back. But they start to describe it. And as they start to describe it, they're recreating their own picture in their head. And you will find yourself creating pictures in your head of what that perfect house looks like. Now, the picture you create may well be rather different than the actuality. When you get to see the perfect house, you may discover that it's rather different. But the picture that you create in the head, it's a picture. Same if a friend comes to tell you about their latest boyfriend or girlfriend. They've met somebody, what they like, and they'll start to describe them. And they'll describe some of their personality, but they'll probably talk about their height, the colour of their hair, the face, whether they wear spectacles or not, how they look. You create a picture. Now, you may have had that experience where a friend has found a new boyfriend or girlfriend, told you about them, you've imagined them, you've got a picture in your head of what they look like, and then you get to meet them. And sometimes when you get to meet them, you're pleasantly surprised by what you see, and sometimes you're not so pleasantly surprised by what you see. Same happens with blind dates if you've never seen a picture. We're making pictures. We do it all the time, even when we think we can't. So if you're having difficulty visualizing, notice when you're making pictures, what are the pictures you make and how do they work best? How can you create little pictures for yourself? Small steps, baby steps. So I hope this has been useful. We're coming to an end now, and I will be publishing the link. If you want to contact me, I'm going to put in the box now the website link, drjamelewis.com, and contact us. If you want to contact me about any of this, then please do. There we go. Good. Yeah, if you want to contact me about any of this, please do. And if you'd like to have a chat with me about ways that I might help you visualize, or ways that I might help you get over any fears you might have about visualization, then please do contact me on that one as well. And I look forward to hearing from you and hearing your comments very soon. Okay, bye now.